how to run an effective sales meeting as a videographer, as a video production business owner, as a video strategist. These are all some of the most important principles that we boiled down. If you have relied mostly on day rates, hourly rates, project rates in the past, and you're looking to shift that and work towards a place where you're better able to communicate your value to prospects, so ultimately you can charge more, but also means you can get better results for your clients. Obviously, when you're charging more, you've got more resources to allocate, you can get better results for them. Also, prospects are a lot more committed as well. If a prospect's paying you a few $100s versus several thousand, their input is going to be a lot greater. They're going to care about the project more. And so we've really just been boiling down what are some of the most important principles, the things that make the biggest difference. And these are the shifts that have helped me going from charging, £500, £1,000 at the very beginning, about 10 years ago now, to being able to charge minimum £30,000. And many of our students have charged upwards of $150,000. Well, 150,000 sort of the upper region. We've had a student charge 800,000 for a project. But if you want to break away from charging a few hundred or a few thousand, and you want to be in that place where you can be charging tens of thousands for a project, then you really need a good framework in place, and you need to be able to approach sales with a certain mindset. It doesn't mean that you need to be salesy by any means. Like, I hate the whole idea of being salesy, and in fact that was something that always made me think that I would never be someone who's good at sales. I never thought it'd be something I'd enjoy. But nowadays it's something that I absolutely love, because at the end of the day, it's about helping people and about helping them get results. And one of the big shifts that we're always helping our students make is that, first and foremost. It's moving away from the idea that you're there to sell people. You're there to give them something that they don't want or need, but actually focusing on providing something for them that's going to bring them massive value and get them results. And the wonderful thing is that's exactly what video can do. We're very uniquely positioned as video people that we have a craft that can bring massive results to businesses, unlike other things. Like, photography, for example, is okay, but it's more of a challenge to get the kind of results that video can get. Same for design. Video is really an amazing problem-solving tool for businesses. Now, one of the things that I was reflecting on earlier was someone asked me the other day, what would I have done differently 10 years ago when it came to hiring my first salesperson? And so when I first set up my business, I worked with this sales guy who was like a real sort of shark, very good at what he does, and sort of person who could sell ice to an Eskimo. And looking back on it now, because back at the time, it was a struggle to manage his expectations and figure out how we get great results, and I never knew quite what was going wrong at the time. And I was thinking, I don't want to be doing sales, I should just leave him to do it. But if he's not doing well, who's at fault? How do we improve things? And the biggest takeaway, and what I was saying to this person the other day, was that I realize now that I absolutely should have, and you really have to, learn the principles and the frameworks yourself before you can hire someone. And you obviously want to hire an expert, you want to hire someone who's good, but if you don't understand the principles and the frameworks yourself, you won't know what they're doing right or wrong. And that's crucial. And even if you did hire someone who is great, what happens when they leave? You're not going to know what it was that they were doing right that you can then impart on the next person and that you can teach. So, as a business owner, that ability to teach the skills and impart knowledge onto your employees is really important, because then you can do it consistently. That's how you build a system, that's how you build a business. So we've got 7 key principles here that we want to share. And these are what we boiled down to be the sort of core fundamentals that have made the biggest difference when it comes to charging more and getting better results as a video business owner. So first and foremost, the biggest shift that I've made in my sales process, and the biggest shift we see people make the quickest when it comes to working with our students, is to never talk about the technical or creative in the first meeting. I'm sure a lot of you are very creatively talented, but there's a little bit of irony in this, which is that the worst thing you can do is go in and talk about technical and creative. And when we review our students' calls, one of the first things we're looking for is to make sure that they're not going in and talking about the script or the lighting or all these wonderful ideas that they've got, because at the end of the day, everyone has ideas, But what's going to differentiate you and enable you to charge more and to get better results is the ability to focus on solving problems and getting results. So rather than going in and saying, hey, these are all the cool things we could do for you, you want to be going in and saying, okay, I'd like to take a step back first. What's the biggest challenge in your business? That's the heart of the beginning of every call, is always about what's the biggest challenge, what's the biggest problem in your business. And if you think about a doctor, for example, if you're in a doctor's office and you sit down and they immediately prescribe you something, you're going to be very weirded out and you're not going to trust them because they don't understand the problem that you're facing yet. So there's a lot of analogies with sales and with the doctor's frame, which is that you've got to go in and first understand the problem before you can prescribe a solution. In a doctor's world, if you prescribe too early, then it would be malpractice. And clients are similar in the sense that if you go in and you're throwing creative ideas at them and you're putting forward all this cool stuff, they're going to be like, well, that's great, but is it going to get us a result? Is it going to solve the problem for us? Is it going to get us a return on investment? The second key, tied directly into this, is to always make sure that you understand the pain properly. When we say pain, we mean understanding the challenge or the problem or the pain, all words that we use synonymously. But the idea is that unless you understand the pain or the challenge, how can you come up with a solution? And to take that another step further, if you're trying to figure out how to price a project, how can you assign a value to something if you don't understand what it is you're assigning a value to? And we talk about value-based pricing on a lot of our calls. We're trying not to get too deep into on this particular one, but at the heart of value-based pricing is understand the problem, assign a value to it, and then we can create a solution that's proportional to the problem. Now, just to keep it simple, the most important thing is that before you come up with any ideas or put forward any kind of solution, make sure you and the client or potential client are super, super clear on exactly what the problem is that's being solved. And this is not only going to help you get much better results for them, but also, in my experience, you're going to stand out so much more compared to all the other videographers and the creatives. The experience of most clients, most people who are looking for service providers, is that they all sit down in the meeting and they're just like, hey, we've got this idea, this idea. People are putting together proposals without even having understood what the problem is. And that's why so many proposals fall on deaf ears. And if you're spending a lot of time on proposals, the best thing you can do is be replacing the proposal with a conversation, replace those PDFs with conversations. But if you think about what a very high value business owner would do, is step into that mindset of someone who's got an abundance of work and has been doing this for decades and working with big budgets. They're not going to go in and be throwing ideas at the prospect. They're going to sit there and they're going to be qualifying the prospect, thinking, right, is this someone that we want to be working with? So the third key here is using the golden question. So once you understand the challenge, you don't want to move on until you fully understand the challenge, but once you've got that, then there's a great question that you can ask, which is hugely valuable and will help get you and the client a very clear picture of where they want to go and the steps required to get there. Now the question is, so you say to the prospect, so you and I are sat here 12 months from now and we're having another meeting and everything in your business has gone incredibly well. What's happened to make you so happy? Now, this is immediately putting them into the mind of thinking forward 12 months, thinking about what success looks like, and then they can describe to you a vivid picture of what that is. Like, in order to get somewhere, if we're looking at a map, we have to know exactly where we're going before we can draw directions on the map to get there. And what they're doing there is telling you about the destination. They're telling you what success looks like. They might not yet know the steps to get there, but we can only help them figure that out if we are very clear on where they want to go. And again, huge mistake that most creatives make is going into the meeting and just making an assumption, not really being clear on where it is the client wants to get to. So to keep this super practical, two super valuable questions to be asking are, what's the biggest challenge in your business? And then following that up with lots of add-on questions to go deeper. How's that impacting the business? How's that impacting you? How's that impacting people around you? Tell me more about that. Spending at least 10, 20 minutes 20 minutes ideally or more talking about that pain, that problem, that challenge. Once you've got that, then the next question, so you and I are sat here 12 months from now, everything's gone incredibly well. What's happened in your business in order to make you so happy? Fourth key thing here is triple set the frame. On a lot of previous calls, we talk about setting the frame. And you want to make sure, as we already mentioned, you don't want to be going into a meeting and just establishing yourself as a pure creative service provider, someone to be taking orders from the client, someone who's just there to shoot and edit a video. Because at the end of the day, the price to shoot and edit a video is really just a few $100s. We want to be moving away from that position of just being technicians and moving to that point where you're viewed more as a strategist, or however you want to position yourself. But the key thing is you have to do that consciously and proactively by setting the frame. And I say triple set the frame because there's three places that you can do it. First is on your website and any materials you've got. So if someone looks at your website, what are they seeing? Are they just seeing book a call with us? It's like, okay, there's a bit of a missed opportunity there because you can really already be setting what they can expect from that call with you. Is it just another generic call? Is it a sales call? Or is it more than that? Are the clients actually going to be getting value from that call? That's what strategy is about. It's about offering value from the very beginning. Now, you can make clear to them from your website, your marketing materials, that this first call is a strategy call or a discovery call or whatever you want to call it. You can do something that aligns with your brand. But on that call, you're going to be doing a deep dive into their business to understand their challenges, their problems, what's working, what's not working, and help them create a roadmap of where they want to go. Now, already that's way more valuable than just doing a sales call where you're there to pitch them, because you're not just there to pitch them. Hopefully, if you're taking on what we're saying here today, it's about shifting towards offering value in that first call and becoming a problem solver rather than just a video creator. A problem solver who uses video to solve problems. There's a big difference. So you can set the frame first on your website and any materials. Then whenever someone books a call with you, you can set the frame again with a follow-up. So prior to the call, either if you're messaging them on the phone, by text, or by email, have a preset message that you send people about what they can expect on that call. And again, so it's not a sales call. It's about understanding their problems and challenges within the business so you can help them create a roadmap for where they want to go. And the exact wording that I use on most of my calls is that we want to understand your business, what's working, what's not working, and where you want to go. And if that's something that we can help with, we show you what that looks like. But if not, we'll point you in the right direction. So either way, you're going to get massive value and clarity. And now the third part of triple set the frame is that it's on the actual call itself. And the reason why we say triple set is because oftentimes it can be difficult to remember to do it when you're having your first few sales meetings. And so you just cover yourself by also doing it in your marketing materials and in an email, and it also reinforces it with the client. They're not just expecting to turn up to a call and have you give them all your ideas and just give them a budget. They can understand straight away that this is about you qualifying them, and it's shifting that dynamic, and it will make you much higher value, and in turn you'll be able to charge a lot more, and you'll be able to create much better results for them too. Number 5 on the list is always talk about money. And this is something that is quite interesting because it goes quite deep on a mindset and psychology level, is that for most of us, we're not comfortable with talking about money because society teaches us that it's not polite, me being British especially. But when you think about going into a sales meeting, how are you going to come away from a sales meeting and then put forward a proposal if you don't know exactly what you should be charging? And I've been in that position so many times before where I come away from a meeting, we haven't talked about money, and then we come to sending a proposal and you're literally just coming up with a number based on your own ideas about what the client can afford. which doesn't make any sense at all. Because if you're working with a multi-billion-dollar company or a small, local store, what they can afford is going to be vastly different. So why should we just put our ideas about what they can afford into that proposal? It's kind of crazy, but that's what most people do. So the way to handle that is to just get comfortable about talking about money in the first call. Now, there are a few things that you can be asking on the call. Again, without going deep into value-based pricing, one of the simplest and most effective questions you can use, and how effective this is really based on how well you have understood the problem or challenge that they're facing in their business. How deep you've gone into understanding that specific challenge. The question you can ask is, given that you're faced with X, what do you think would be a reasonable amount to invest in order to solve this problem? And you're putting it onto the client. And the reason I say it's really important to first understand the problem or the challenge is because if you've just had a 20, 30, 40-minute discussion about the biggest problem in their business, and say they're a multi-million-dollar business, and say that they're having issues with customers understanding their products or their services, and they should be making hundreds of thousands of dollars more, but they're not, then when you ask them what's a reasonable amount to invest, they're not going to be like, oh, what's your day rate? Or, oh yeah, $1,000. It's just not going to happen, because they understand that you have to be investing something that's within reason, relatively proportional to the size of the problem. So that's the simplest question that you can be asking. But again, it all comes down to first understanding the actual problem or challenge. If you were to, in contrast, say you were going in and you just positioned yourself as a technician, you're a videographer, and you're just there to shoot and edit, if you were to ask someone, what's a reasonable amount to invest in this? They would just be like, well, what's the going rate for the video? What would other videographers charge? Whereas, again, positioning yourself not as a videographer, but as a problem solver who uses video, you're able to completely shift the way that you price your services. The next thing is welcoming objections. In a kind of similar vein to talking about money, it's one of those taboo things, something that we tend to be naturally uncomfortable about, because a lot of people think objections are rejections, but they're really not. If I told you that objections are an essential part of every single sale, and you wouldn't be able to land any project ever without dealing with objections, how would that change your view on them? An objection is not something where someone's saying, oh, I don't like you, don't like what you're talking about, I don't like what you're offering. An objection is just simply part of the process. There will always be an objection. We don't have enough money at the moment. It would be, I've got to speak to my partner, or I'm not sure if this is the right time for us. Anything along those lines. And when you hear an objection like that, I don't want you to take it at face value, because 90% of the time, what they say first is not what they really mean. And because we've been trained over years and years of being sold to, people, throwing offers at us every second of the day. You imagine walking down the street, someone comes up to you, they're handing you a flyer, trying to offer you something. Oh, sorry, I don't have time right now. Or, you're chatting to someone through a sale. I've got to check with my wife. These are just natural buyer defense mechanisms. So whatever someone says first, don't take it at face value. And you've got to be open to talking about objections and digging deeper and finding out what the real objection is. And simply put, things like, so is that the only thing that's holding you back at the moment? Other than saying that this isn't the right time just now, is that the only thing? Okay, got it. So that's the only thing that's holding you back from moving forward. Let's talk about that. Why specifically would you say it's not the right time at the moment? Another useful, trying to give some practical phrases and things that you can be implementing in your next meetings, about what's the biggest challenge. You and I are sat here 12 months from now. When it comes to objections, what I recommend is doing a hypothetical. So at the end of any meeting, so hypothetically, if we can come up with some solutions to help you solve this problem, is there anything stopping you from moving forward with this right away? Very easy way to draw out any underlying objections. As soon as you get someone into that headspace of, right, we're ready to move forward, let's go for it, any kind of underlying objections, anything hidden in the shadows is going to pop out. It's a bit like asking someone to get their credit card out. You could be talking about, let's say you've got a business idea, you're talking to some friends about getting investment, or sharing the idea with people. They're like, yeah, that's so cool, I love it, yeah, I'd buy it, I think you should do it. Okay, cool, you want to invest $1,000 in it? Let's go right now. Oh, actually, no, I don't have the money right now. Oh, I'd have to check with my partner. You have to do that in the first meeting, because an objection early on is your friend, an objection later on could kill the whole deal. And you've probably experienced this as well, but if you have a great meeting with someone and then you send over a proposal and then you don't hear from them for a while, or suddenly they send over an objection by email, then I'm sure you're familiar with how difficult that is to deal with, because it's very difficult to do objection handling by email. You're far, far better off doing it in person, and that means you're better off uncovering it in that first meeting, because again, if there's an objection, it can actually be very difficult to get someone onto that second call. So one of the best things you can do to be closing more deals and making sure that you've got a better conversion rate is just talking about any objections on the call. And they're surprisingly easy to work through as well once you get down to it. Once you just boil it down to something simple, like, why is this not the right time at the moment? Or, you say that you don't have enough money right now, but we just got done talking about how this is the biggest challenge in your business right now, and this is holding you back from making an additional $200,000-$300,000 a year in profit. So when you say you don't have enough money right now, can I just ask, what do you mean exactly? And then you can address the more, another real objection might pop up after that. And oftentimes the deepest underlying objection, like the real one, is usually the question, will this work for me? Someone might say, oh, it's price or it's time or whatever. But if someone's 100% sure that what you're offering will work for them and it will get them result, then most of the time people can move mountains in order to make it happen. So again, when you hear an objection, most likely what they're really saying is, I'm not sure if this will work for me. And that's something that once you get to the bottom of it, you can just talk to them about, and you can resolve that quite easily. So never talk about technical called creative. Understanding the pain points, using the golden question, triple set the frame, talking about money, welcoming objections, it all requires that personal connection, that one-to-one human conversation. One of the things that I always thought was that a good salesperson had to be that extremely extrovert personality, that someone who's super confident, hey, it's Jackson, like, how you doing, all this. And I'm definitely more of a introvert a lot of the time. What I found is that just being myself and keeping it very chill is absolutely fine. And I've had people tell me that that's much better. That's why I get a very good reception from people, is because I'm not going in with that classic, like, aggressive, high intensity salesperson. If that's you, then that's fine, and do it well. But even if you're sort of more softly spoken and you're more of an introvert, that's absolutely fine. And if anything, it would take people by surprise. They'd be like, he's a really chill person, just called me up. I'm having a genuine human conversation. That's great. Success of business is directly proportional to the quality of the relationships you build. Then what are you doing day to day to build good relationships? And there's one action step, which is just make a list of 3 people that you need to get in touch with, whether they're past clients or potential clients, and just make sure you do those calls today or tomorrow. And then it's about building habit, getting comfortable with it, and then do 3 the next day. Maybe start doing 4 next week. That's what's going to make the biggest difference, because you're putting yourself in the right position to be building good relationships. Accountability is also super, super important. So if there's any way that you can be holding yourself accountable to doing these things, it's why we run the coaching program, is like accountability is a huge part of it. But if you're not doing a program with us, just consider who can you be working with, who, like a gym partner, whether it's a family member or another business owner, a friend. Hold each other accountable to taking those little actions every single day, and then they compound over time. 3 phone calls per day, taking 3 phone calls tomorrow doesn't sound like much, but when you compound that over the next 12 months, that's life-changing.